Was it easy? No. Was it fun? Not really. Was it convincing? Not in the slightest. But the Edmonton Oilers, once again, found a way to win.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Victory Thursday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. This is my 10th season doing digital hockey content, my third as a host here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I want to thank everyone that is making Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day, and everyone who has helped make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app, visit FanDuel.com, and win up to $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, we are going to walk through a nail-biter of a 2-1 victory against the Flyers in Philadelphia. We will start out with the good. The Oilers showing the capacity to play a structured, disciplined game and waiting for the game to evolve before starting to take risks. In our second segment, we will pivot to a lingering question I have asked myself a lot this year, especially because the Oilers have struggled to put games away. Where is the Oilers' put-away goal ability? Why can they not finish these games convincingly? And then our final segment here, which is almost a full page of notes just for the third segment. Do the Oilers have more in them? I have a bunch of stats for this year in comparison to recent Oilers history to provide some context to what I mean by that. So to start out, they made a big deal of this on the Sportsnet broadcast that the Oilers had a 4-hour flight yesterday and they were going forward in time. Coming to the Eastern time zone, the Oilers had effectively a 6-hour flight. And that can be a bit jarring. You get that here the day before, you get to the Eastern time zone the day before, it gives you an opportunity to adjust a little bit. Anybody who travels regularly knows the tips and tricks. You want to try and stay up till your normal bedtime or close to it that first night so that you can get onto a normal body clock and at least try to sleep somewhat normally on the game day, and then you take your nap after your morning skate. The Oilers ran a practice this morning on Wednesday morning before the game against the Flyers that was pretty heavily attended. A lot of mixing and matching because of the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins injury. Zach Hyman should return Saturday night, which is great, but losing Nuge in getting Hyman back makes this a little bit of a bittersweet moment. I've been banging that drum for about 2 weeks now that once Hyman comes back, then we can start to make a God's honest assessment of where this team is at. But the first real takeaway from this game is that middle chunk, that 15-plus minute stretch where the Oilers lulled the Flyers to sleep with a 1-0 lead. That is an example of how you need to play if you are going to pursue victory the way the Oilers are. Again, this is not a team that should be trying to play low-event hockey. We understand why Kris Knoblauch is choosing to strategize that way. He is trying to get these games to come down to a handful of sequences, and his supposition, of course, being, I have Connor McDavid, I have Leon Draisaitl. That in of itself should give me the capacity to swing these games 1 or 2 times and win them in a way that other teams cannot. The counterpoint to that, and you saw that in this Flyers game, if you are in 1-goal games over and over and over again, all it takes is one mistake and the game is tied again. And that's really the struggle. But for that middle chunk of the game, you saw the Oilers extremely aggressive on the boards, win almost every 50-50 puck for about 6 straight minutes, and frustrated the Flyers beyond belief. And that's one of the keys to being a successful low-event hockey team. If you are going to win low-scoring games, you need to be in control of the game. You need to be dictating the tempo, the pace. We know the Oilers are playing at a slower pace this year than they have in years past in terms of the rate of scoring chances they generate and the shots on goal they generate, which means they're getting to offense less frequently, which means the game is in a bit more of a transition state, and or they are being selective in the offensive zone. They are stringing together 4, 5, 6, 7 passes in that offensive zone before they take that chance, before they try and get a look on the net. And you saw a good chunk of that in that middle third of the game, that middle 15 minutes, where the Oilers were very content. We're going to move this puck around the perimeter. We are going to wait for a really good scoring chance to set itself up. And we are going to make the Flyers come get the puck. Against a lot of teams, you won't be able to do that. But against this particular iteration of the Flyers, that is a weird team. And I say that in terms of style. I say that in terms of pieces. And don't get me wrong, I like a lot of the guys the Flyers have in the mix. You saw Michkov get on the board. He scored the one Flyer goal. He's someone I am very optimistic about in spite of his slow start to the year. He's got 3 in his last 3 games, if I remember correctly. I've always been and will continue to defend Trevor Zegras. I think there is talent there. And you have Owen Tippett, you have Noah Cates, and you get to a certain point where the Oilers are struggling to control games. And what I mean by that isn't necessarily going to be reflected in the box score, but at a certain point, the inability to find that put away goal is becoming increasingly damning. When you cannot get to 2, I'm not saying 4, 5, 6, you got to be able to get to 2 with some consistency, but I wanted to look it up, and I did. Coming into tonight's game, when the Oilers score first, they are 4-1-2 this year. That's not great. 4-1-2 when scoring first means you are not getting that second goal. When leading after 1, the Oilers are 1-1-2. That does not include tonight's game. That record should be 5-1-2 after winning tonight, scoring first. Leading after 1, they should be 2-1-2 after tonight, but that was coming into tonight. Game management is an important skill, and it's a real challenge. And when it is hard to come by, when offense is hard to come by, when the puck just isn't going in the net, it is really easy to get frustrated. It is really easy to break structure. It is really easy to give in to that little voice in your head that's saying, we need offense, we need offense, we need offense. And that middle swaths of the game, that 15 minutes is proof that you can do it from time to time. The idea that even if the puck's not going in the net, we can be patient, we can pick our spots, we can control the game. We don't put a lot on Skinner or Pickard's plate. We don't put a lot on our defenders' plates. But that in of itself is a modest proof of concept. It's one game against a Flyers team that's weird. They're 8-5-3, I believe, now after losing tonight in overtime. But, and I say but very ambiguously here, I don't necessarily feel great that this is the strategy the Oilers are looking to pursue with where the NHL is at. And I got a lot of stats as far as the second and third segments for my point and what I mean by not feeling great about it. Look, this is the National Hockey League. At the end of the day, and I hate saying at the end of the day, but it is the way to preface this, the guys don't care how pretty it is. All hockey players and all athletes, frankly, care about is, did we win? I went out there, I put it all on the line. I risked bodily harm. I tried my butt off. We beat the other team. I don't care how we did it. I don't care if it's sustainable or repeatable. That's a next time problem. And that mentality is pervasive in sports, and I get it. I can understand being in that position and not really caring about style points. I can get being in that position and not really worrying what the outside noise is, because ultimately it's about the guys in the room. And if the guys in the room feel the way they're playing is going to work continuously, in spite of what I think, what you might think listening or watching, they're going to be pretty hard to convince that if they're winning in the NHL, they can't get away with it. But we are going to take our first break on today's edition of Locked On Oilers. When we come back, we'll tackle just what I mean, and I'm going to tell you why the Oilers are having such a hard time finding that put-away goal. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix a packet in the morning before I work out. My pouch is right here. They taste really good. It doesn't taste synthetic. It doesn't taste fake. It tastes like an actual juice type drink. And it's my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Hydration has always been a non-negotiable for me, and Drip Drop has taken me to a whole nother level. And right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off their first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now for that winter bulk when you're getting on that mass. Keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. Thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen of the day, and thank you so much for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. My friends, as we get deeper and deeper into the season, the importance of extrapolating, the importance of being able to learn and understand is only going to become more important. And I frame a lot of my thinking through that lens of the big picture, the 10,000-foot views, the drop down, because you are putting your time, effort, emotions, and money into this team. You're deciding, do I want to watch the game? Do I want to go out? Do I want to go to a game? Do I want to watch on TV? Do I want to buy a jersey? Do I want to travel to a game? All of those factors. And it gets back to one of my core principles in what I do. And I understand that for most people, you wouldn't consider this a journalistic forum, but I still do try and uphold the baseline there, that my job is to give you actionable information to make decisions. And the democratization of information is inherently a good thing. The more people that are aware, the better off the collective is. And I wanted to focus in this second segment on the put away goal, because I think that's the missing key here. And in the macro, the big picture, this Oilers team lost quite a bit of offense over year. So last year, and I know Evander Kane did not play in the regular season, but for the math of this, bear with me. So Connor Brown averaged 10 goals per year. Corey Perry, post-prime, is a 12-goal-a-year guy. Victor Arvidsson, 17 goals per year. Jeff Skinner, 25 per year. Evander Kane, 22 per year. Who did the Oilers bring in to replace those guys? Matthew Savoy and Ike Howard, who 0. Those guys have not had full NHL seasons, so we don't have averages. I hoped they would both be able to get to 10 or so and make this a somewhat passable number to get close to the previous output. Jack Roslovic, 11, even though he's already halfway there. He's at 5 already, and he's only been on the team a month. So he looks like a good bet to go over his career average of 11 goals per season. Andrew Mangiapane, 15 goals per season. That is heavily influenced by that 130-goal season in there with the Flames a couple of years ago. And then Trent Frederick, who right now is on an 8-goal per season pace. And there are seasons in there for Frederick where he only plays a handful of games. So we can be a bit charitable to him, and we'll say like 10 or so. But the Oilers had 50-plus goals walk out the door last year over the summer and replaced it on upside, on we think, on the capacity to get there. And the Oilers environmentally aren't doing enough to coax that out. And it's one thing to say, we want to bet on these guys to make up the offense we lost. You have to do that. That is an integral part of roster construction. You have to be able to forecast. You have to be able to project. But with that said, you need to put these guys in positions to succeed. Ike Howard is getting 9.5 minutes per game. There is not a chance in hell he's going to score 15 goals this year if he's only playing 9 minutes per game, if he's not playing with Connor, if he's not playing with Leon, if he's not on one of the 2 power play units. Matthew Savoy is going to struggle to get to 15 goals, only playing 11, 12 minutes per night and not getting featured roles. I will say Savoy did get extended run in the top 6 today because Nugent-Hopkins was hurt. I liked what I saw I thought his skill set translated very well to the interplay of the top six. I thought he did a nice job with McDavid and Mangiapane in particular during that middle stretch of the game where the Oilers were dominating the game state. He did a really nice job of shielding the puck, using his body to angle himself away from oncoming defenders to maintain the cycle, to continue possession going. You continue down that list. How is Andrew Mangiapane going to get to that 15-goal mark? He got off to a nice start. He scored quite a bit in the first few games of the season. But sitting here now, Andrew Mangiapane has 4 goals through 17 games. If we want to say we're about a quarter of a way through the season, he'll get to 16. But more likely, the Oilers probably needed him to be closer to 20. And these numbers are all rate-based. We only have the 15 or so games of data, 17, games of data, not including the Flyer game tonight. We have 17 games of data to work off of, to extrapolate, to form opinions, to form projections. And the Oilers are going to reach a crossroads here. And then, real quick, I do think Trent Frederick can probably get to 9 or 10 goals. I wouldn't bet on it. Right now, he's sitting at 1 through 17 games. If you wanted to multiply that out, he would end up with like 5 or so. But I don't think it's out of the question the further he gets away from that ankle surgery that really hampered him in the postseason last year. I think there's an argument that Trent Frederick could be a little bit better if he can get healthy. But the big problem here for Edmonton is twofold. Number one, the Oilers have changed styles to better suit their talent to protect what the coach perceives as their team deficiencies. In doing that, the environment is not as favorable for offense, which means you ultimately have 3 options. You either get more efficient, which means we're not going to create as much volume, but the chances we do create, we're going to create dangerous offense. We're going to pick our spots. We're going to be choosy. The problem with that is the Oilers aren't faring well in that regard. When it comes to underlying numbers, the Oilers are 26th in expected goals for per 60 minutes. And then high danger chances, they're even worse. The Oilers, a team with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, is 31st in the NHL in high danger chances for per game. This is a team that is not getting pucks to dangerous areas of the ice. This is a team that is largely trying to win through game control, through volume, and they don't have the finishing talent. That's the key here. When you look at a team like the Florida Panthers, who have won 2 straight Stanley Cups and have gone to 3, their team shooting percentage, especially at 5-on-5, is pretty low. They are a volume-based offense. But you look at Reinhart, Kachuk, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Bennett, all guys who shoot above average percentages-wise. So even though the aggregate, the team as a whole, has a low shooting percentage, their individual high-end guys are good enough shooters that they don't need as dangerous of offense. The Oilers do not have that luxury. Once you get past Connor, once you get past Leon, yes, Zach Hyman will come back. That's a 13-14% shooter. Okay, that's 3 guys who are capable of shooting at an above-average percentage, creating more dangerous offense. The key to scoring in today's NHL is getting to that danger area, whether that's cross-seam passes, whether that's 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, rush offense, or that's getting traffic in front, screening the goalie, and creating chaos. But right now, the Oilers are not creating dangerous enough offense. They are not creating offense at a high enough rate to make up for the fact they're not making dangerous offense, and they're not shooting well enough to make up for the fact that they are not playing at a high pace or they are not creating a lot of dangerous chances. All of that together creates a pretty stunted offensive group that cannot put games away. It should not take heaven and earth to score 2 goals against the Flyers. I know Rick Tockett's a good defensive coach. I know Daniel Vladar is putting together a really nice start to the season for the Flyers and has been integral in their strong start. They've been in so many close 1-goal games, and they are hanging around. They got to overtime tonight against the Oilers, and if it weren't for an offsides review that 5-6 years ago doesn't happen because offsides isn't reviewable, the Oilers lose that game, even though they played reasonably well for a chunk of it. But that's the NHL. We are going to take our second and final break of today's show. When we come back, we will explore whether or not the Oilers have more in them, or if this really is it. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, or if you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. If you're looking at the odds, the Thunder moved down quite a bit. They were 250 yesterday. They're down to plus 185 today. The Nuggets and Cavs are both checking in at 7-1. The Knicks, my Knicks, who lost tonight, and the Rockets are both at 13-1. And the Lakers, with LeBron's return on the horizon, are at 14-1. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much to everyone who is hanging out on this Victory Thursday edition of Locked On Oilers. And I had so much to talk about on this show, I forgot. Moment of appreciation in our 82-game season. I want to give a shout out to Jack Roslovic, who, without a training camp, without a preseason, has jumped into this team and made his skill set invaluable. Roslovic is on a really nice pace so far. Of course, it's only been 15, 16 games for him, but that is a strong start. Roslovic has 5 goals in, 17 games now. So he has 6 goals in 17 games because of the one he scored tonight. 5 in 16, excuse me. He has 5 goals in 16 games. You got to remember, Hockey Reference is always 1 goal off. What Hockey Reference is always the day before, and the game totals update overnight. So you have to apologize for me stumbling on my words there. But that is a guy who is well on pace for 20 goals. And that's someone they signed not off the street. Jack Roslovic was always going to be on a team this year, but that's a guy who wasn't on a training camp roster or a preseason roster, and he has been invaluable to them. I want to give a shout out to Evan Bouchard, scored the goal in the first period off of the McDavid rush chance. Bouch is having a very up and down, enigmatic season, and I have a soft spot for the guy. I love the way he plays when he's dialed in. One of the great playoff performers in our game today. And it's always good to see the guys you care about pick up stats on the sheet. Pivoting to our final segment and the open-ended question, do the Oilers have more in them? And in a long season, you are getting more and more information with each passing day. We are learning more and more about this group with each passing day. They are struggling to create offense. They are struggling to create dangerous offense. And I wanted to talk about environment because I done that in the second segment, but I want to put more context behind that. So the NHL average right now, teams are getting 3.05 power play opportunities per game. The Oilers are getting 2.7. So 0.3 doesn't sound like a lot, but that's one extra power play every 3 games. That accumulates over the course of a long season. So hypothetically, if you wanted to do that over the course of a full season, 82 divided by 3 isn't a clean number, but it's in the ballpark of 29, 30. It's a little less than that. It's like 26 and a half, 27 or so. 27 by 3, 54, 6, somewhere in there. So 26, 27 over the course of a full season. We're talking about 26 or 27 more power play opportunities. The Oilers are converting on more than a fourth of them. So if you want to do 26 more power play opportunities, that is a significant chunk of goals the Oilers are losing when it comes to the power play, and they need them desperately because they are not scoring at as high of a rate at 5-on-5, and they're not getting them because they are not creating as dangerous offense. They are not getting to areas where teams are likely to take a penalty rather than letting them get off the scoring chance. The save percentage, the league average is .891. That will go up over the course of the year. I would be shocked if it ended this low. This would be the lowest in a long time. But the Oilers, .862. .862. That is what you would expect if you put a career AHL goalie into the NHL and let them play long-term. That's unacceptable. It's just not competitive. The Oilers need more. Whether that's external, whether that's Connor Ingram, whether that's Stuart Skinner screwing his head on straight, whatever you might think, this group needs more out of the goaltending. And then tempo per game is okay. Shots on goal, 28.3. That's about 0.7 more shots on goal per game than the league average. But that brings me to the question we talked about in our last segment, and I want to expand on it more. Where can you get more out of this group? Who is it reasonable to ask of based on what we've seen so far? Trent Frederick, who has 1 goal, who signed an 8-year contract? Yes, unequivocally. Ike Howard? Probably not based on the role he's playing right now. If he bumps up in the lineup, different conversation. Savoy? Similar to what I just said about Howard. Zach Hyman? Unknown quantity. I lean yes, but I am not certain. The defense needs to be better. Darnell Nurse has been on the ice for 14 goals against, 11 goals for at 5-on-5, even more on the penalty kill. And then real quick, as of right now, going into tonight's game, the Oilers were on pace for 251 goals for the full season. That would be the lowest since COVID. So right now they're on pace for 251. Last year they had 259. The year before that, 292. The year before that, 325. The year before that, 285. Their 5-year average, including this year's pace, is 282. We are talking about 25 to 30 goals the Oilers are missing from where they have been in years past. And that's based on what has happened so far. 251 is the pace. So where is there more offense to come from? I think Zach Hyman coming back is an easy 15, 20 goals. I would say more, but based on missing a month, needing time to ramp up, I wouldn't be surprised if it took Hyman a little while to find his scoring touch, to get acclimated, to get up to game speed. And that's not really a conditioning question. It's a wrist injury, so he's been able to do cardio, he's been able to exercise, but hockey is a timing sport, and jumping in after not having a preseason or a training camp, it's tricky. So give Hyman a bit of patience, but the Oilers are looking somewhere in the ballpark of needing 25 to 30 more goals than they are currently on pace for. That means guys need to do more. And help might come, whether that's a goalie and maybe they don't need another 25, they only need 20. Okay. They get another defenseman or they send defenseman out. Okay. Defense, fewer goals against, not needing as many. Okay. More likely than not, this group needs a top 9 forward. And if Zach Hyman comes back and Nuge comes back not too long into the future, okay. You go with Nuge on the left of McDavid, Hyman on the right of him. You go Leon, Podkolzin, Roslovic. You go Howard, Savoy, Henrique. Where does that leave Mangiapane? Do you really want to put your guy on the 4th line? Do you want to put Henrique on the 4th line? Do you want to give arguments for Noah Phil, David Tomashek? There are guys out there in the mix who have the potential to contribute to what the Oilers need. But it's incumbent upon Kris Knoblauch to take the information he is getting with each passing game, be able to synthesize it into conclusions, and then based on those conclusions, make adjustments. Because right now, the Oilers are not scoring enough at 5-on-5, and they do not create enough power play opportunities to rely on the power play to the degree they are so far. That will do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. Thank you so much to everyone who made Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you happen to be listening on Apple or Spotify, a 5-star review would be greatly appreciated. If you were watching over on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every morning, they are breaking down every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned in June. Those episodes get recorded way late. Those are West Coast guys. They are the key to knowing what's going on all across the league. I will talk to you guys tomorrow after the Oilers' next game. Until then, let's go Oilers.